planes, and much of it's just vocabulary and how you name things symbolically, which is very important for our course. Our first term, which we have vocabulary quizzes that are double quiz grade, so you really want to study these vocabulary words, and there's flashcards in the online resources tab on our website as well to help you study these. But our first term is undefined term, which is kind of funny to define terms that are undefined. It is a word without a formal definition, but of course we're going to try to describe what these words mean. The three undefined terms are point, line, and plane. So those are the three terms that are the undefined terms in geometry. A point is, a point has no dimension, and it is represented by a dot and a capital letter. So if I drew a picture of a point, it would just be a dot and a capital letter. If I wanted to name this point, I would just write that capital letter down, and that's how you name it. A line has one dimension, and through any 2 points there is exactly one line. You can use any 2 points on the line to name it, and there is another way of naming it as well. So I'm going to draw a line and I'm going to name it multiple ways. So if this is my line, and I'm going to put a couple of points on here, because through any 2 points there's one line, even if the line is not drawn. And then sometimes I'll have a little italic lowercase letter off to the side near the arrow, and that is what we call shortcut for naming that line. So one way to name this line is to call it with 2 capital letters that are points on the line, and you have to put the correct symbol above it, which is a bar with 2 arrows on it, because a line goes forever in 2 directions. You can also flip the letters around, and if there was another point on the line, we could use that point as well. But again, you only use 2, so any 2 points that are on the line in any order for the name of it. And then you can also call it L. I usually like to write line L if I do that, but you can just put the lowercase l, that works as well, as long as it does have one out to the side. Collinear points, these are points that are on the same line. Remember that any 2 points are collinear even if no line is drawn. So points on the same line, and usually we're going to ask you about 3 of them, because remember, any 2 are collinear. So if I just listed 2, you wouldn't even need an image. These points are collinear. They're on the same line together. So if I were to name them, I would say A with a comma, B, comma, and C. And I separate them with a comma because if I didn't separate them, that would be me naming something else. Actually, it'd be a plane and not a list of points. So you do want to separate them out. Non-collinear points are points that do not lie on the same line. So if I had a line here, and again, any 2 points make a line, so I'm going to put 2 points on it. I'm going to call those X and Y, and then a third point that is not on the line. So to be non-collinear, you need points that are not on the same line together. Any 2 are collinear, so I needed to list 3 here. So X, Y, and Z are non-collinear points here. A plane has 2 dimensions. It's like a flat surface. It is represented by a parallelogram and named using 3 non-collinear points. Through any 3 points not on the same line, there is exactly one plane. If those points are on the same line, though, that's where you have to be careful, then it's not exactly one plane. It would actually, you'd be able to put a lot of planes through it if they lined up. So you need them to be not on the same line when you're naming it with those points. You can use 3 non-collinear points to name a plane or a capital letter not associated with a point. So don't get too obsessed with the parallelogram shape, and that was kind of a bad parallelogram. Sometimes they have a capital letter in the corner that doesn't have a dot. That is the alternate method for naming the plane. Then you have letters within the plane that have points. So we've got points A, B, C, D here. These are points in this plane. You can name this plane with any combination of the letters A, B, C, and D, but you only use 3 letters. So you could say plane CAB if you wanted to. Or you can say plane M, because M is that shortcut name in the corner. You cannot pick points that line up in a line, though. Remember that your 3 points that you choose should not make a line if you're naming a specific plane. Coplanar points. Coplanar points are on the same plane. Remember that any 3 are coplanar, even if no plane is drawn. So I'm going to list off 4 in this picture above that are coplanar. A, B, C, and D are coplanar points. Remember that M is not a point, so it does not need to be listed here. Define terms. These are terms that can be defined using known terms. There's no picture for that. But using the term plane and line and point, we can define other terms in geometry. Line segment, comma, endpoints. Here, part of a line consisting of 2 points known as endpoints and all of the points in between. So a line segment has like a beginning and an end. It does not keep going. So this is a line segment. It can be named, this particular segment can be named 2 ways. These are the only 2 ways to name this particular line segment. You need to be sure you put the proper symbol above it, which is a segment bar with no arrows. So this segment can be called AB or BA. That would name the same exact segment in the image. A ray. Ray AB is formed by endpoint A, and all of the points that lie on the same side of A as B. Order matters when you're naming a ray. So, very important to keep in mind that the order matters for a ray. I would say rays are the ones that people get the most confused with. So if I have this ray, and they had called it AB, so I'm going to go ahead and call it AB. So it begins at A and goes in the direction of B. You would name it AB, and you would put an arrow to the right over the top. As you name a ray, you always name it with that arrow going to the right. Even if this particular ray was going to the left, it would still have A here, where it's no arrow, and B would be in the direction that you're wanting it to go. You would still name it AB, and you would still put the arrow going to the right above it. So this name tells you it begins at A and goes towards B and keeps going. That's why the arrow's there. This says it begins at A and goes towards B and it keeps going. Versus the segment, here it says begins at A, ends at B, A to B. Begins at B, ends at A, B to A. It's the same segment whether you're going to the left or the right when you name it. With the ray though, if I had said BA, I'd be going in the direction of A, going the wrong direction. Opposite rays are 2 unique rays that are collinear and have the same endpoint but go in opposite directions. Same endpoint is important. AB and BA would not be opposite rays because they do not begin at the same endpoint. And together they form one line, not an angle. They form a straight line. Be careful that you don't make them form an angle. So if I want to find them in an image, I just look for a line that has 3 dots on it. Has to have 3 to make a pair of opposite rays. If I had this line with A, B, and C on it, a pair of opposite rays on this line, one of them would start at B and go towards A, and the other one would start at B and go towards C. So that would be a pair of opposite rays for this image. So we would name them BA, going from B to A, and BC, going from B to C. That's a pair of opposite rays. Intersection is the set of all points two or more geometric figures have in common. And the type of the intersection will just depend on the geometric figures that you're talking about. If they mention two planes, you have to keep in mind that planes go forever. So the intersection of these planes has to be something that goes forever. A lot of the time, people will name a segment as the intersection of two planes because that's what it looks like on paper. Because on paper, we can't really draw forever. So just keep in mind, if they say plane this and plane that your intersection is likely to be something that will go forever and ever, so it's probably going to be a line. If we had three planes, they can intersect in a line or a point. It just kind of depends on your image. Sometimes we'll ask you to draw the image, and sometimes we'll ask you, we'll have an image and then you'll name it. But if it was two planes and they did intersect, they would intersect in a line. Three planes, it just depends on the image.